Bob.
That's
My
my
name is
name.
Steve Guttenberg. My guest today is Bob Katz. We've known each other, we figure, over 40 years or so, right?
This is like an anniversary.
It is
You
sort
know,
of,
I
yeah.
think we met in New York in 1977
Right.
or 78. This is before I introduced you to David Chesky.
Right. Oh, a couple of years.
And before I introduced you to audiophile
Yeah.
Nirvana.
You were the gateway drug. Absolutely, you were. You know, because the thing was, when I went to your apartment and heard your Amzilla and your Dalquist, it was truly a revelation. I'm not kidding. It was life-changing. It set the course for the rest of my life to this very day, and I'm not kidding.
Good thing I don't have that system anymore.
Because so many, one thing led to another, to another, to another. You know? Mm-hmm. But I don't want to just rehash all history. You're a top mastering engineer.
Oh, God.
And what I want to know is, everybody talks about the Loudness wars, and certainly you do. But what I want to know is what musicians, your clients, say to you, because my theory is, but you're the one that lives it, is that they're listening over their car audio system or earbuds or $10 Bluetooth speakers. So they're not listening over your system. They're listening in real life to a boombox or something, right?
Well, you know.
So what is it? What are their expectations? What do they want their music to sound like?
What happened, I think, is a progression for my clients. The artists, the musicians, the record companies. Back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, we would go to a high-end recording studio, and the artist would go there, and they'd hear a reference, and that was what we heard in the studio, and it wasn't a problem because they didn't, have to deal with it. Now, I might get an artist say, "Hey, I listened to it on my telephone."
Right.
I heard it on my iPhone.
In the phone.
Yeah, and so it's actually a worse situation now than it was a number of years ago. Now, hopefully, the ones that trust me when I say that that there is an issue or not an issue are, hello, Robert, are the ones who will get the best results. But if they say, listen, there's not enough bass, and I'm saying, what are you listening to? On my MacBook speakers,
right.
I'm saying, oh, another one of those.
Yeah.
And I have to go through a process of education. So it's a constant process of education. And
trust, as you said.
Yes, they have to trust me. And the good thing is that the ones that do trust me after enough decades in the business are in the majority. And the ones that say that there's a problem, I'll listen to them very carefully. Well, one of my best clients, who happens to be a bass player and has an audiophile quality system, said, Bob, I don't think that this mix has the kind of bottom end that it should. And I said, let me take a listen. And I said, I think you're right. So I do listen to the clients.
But when you have these conversations, do you have conversations before you start a mastering job?
Ideally.
Like what they want?
Ideally, if there's time.
And what kind of language do they use?
Oh, it varies, it depends on if it's musical language or technical language, whatever I need to talk in. If it's 1 dB at 500 hertz with a Q of 0.7, I'm ready to tell them that.
Sure.
Or if I think it's not warm enough, I'll use whatever language we want to talk about. And usually, if a mix comes to me and I think it's ready for mastering, but it could be enhanced, I'll tell them what I suggest could be done with it, and they'll say, well, the answers are all over the place, but sometimes they'll say, well, let me hear what you can do for it. And I'm not saying I have 100% success rate. If that were true, I would be more perfect than anybody. But I have a good success rate, and they'll come back and say, I like it.
But do you have the equivalent of what would be the 21st century equivalent of Oratones? Like, not a big system?
Not at all.
But, I mean, do you have one just to say, here's what it's going to sound like?
Never.
No? You wouldn't do that?
No, I don't.
Why not?
No, because I don't believe in that kind of stuff.
But don't you worry about how it translates?
Steve, I wrote a book about it.
Oh,
and
plug for your book,
I will. In my book, which is called Mastering Audio, I point out...
Catchy title.
Isn't it? Mastering Audio, the Art and the Science. I talk about very basic principle. Well, let's start with Dr. Floyd Toole, who I know you've heard of. He points out that the average of all the loudspeakers in the world is flat. Yeah, when I try to make something that falls in the middle of this curve that sounds as accurate as possible on my accurate system, it will average out well on bright systems, and it will average out well on the dull, dark, boomy systems.
There is a very large but. Remember Pee Wee Herman said everybody's got a big butt? Here's the but. They're not listening over systems. They're listening in their car, they're listening at the beach, they're listening on the subway, they're listening in noisy environments.
Okay, we'll get to the noisy.
Cut through that.
We'll get to the noisy part in a minute. Let me just talk about the frequency response or the tonal character. Okay. First thing is, premium car systems have gotten, I know that's like a contradiction in terms, but I don't know how much exposure you've had to car systems, but I will say that car systems have gotten much, much better over the years. And the reasons, of course, is that people listen more in their cars now than they do at home.
Absolutely.
Okay? And is it okay if I mention brands?
Of cars?
No, brands of car systems.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Believe it or not, a brand which we often disparage, Bose.
Yes.
Bose premium systems, Harman Kardon premium systems, Mark Levinson premium systems, and adding a new one in my Tesla Model 3 all-wheel drive, that premium system, are very, very good. I'm not saying I would use them to master by or to judge by, but if a client used them to judge by, I would listen to what they told me.
Okay.
And I have a better chance with it. But our older Subaru Harman Kardon system, they're often tuned with a extra sub bass. I think maybe for the hip hop listeners. I think a lot of people like that extra hip hop sound. So I have to be very careful if they say that there's too much bottom. I'll say, well, typically in those systems I have to roll the bass off a little bit. So we do have to be careful, but in the car systems for the tonal balance, I'm having better luck than I ever had. If they're just listening on their Toyota ordinary factory system, I say, I'm sorry, please try to find a better system to listen on. And if they're listening on their MacBook Pros, which have, I say, please, this is, what are you coming to me for to master, the greatest sounding album in the world if you can't even appreciate it, on what you're listening.
So you're a shrink.
That's my job.
Right? I mean, it is. Because they're insecure. They want their music to sound good. You're telling them it should sound this way. They're saying, oh, but I hear it. So it's like moving the needle back and forth in terms of where it's going to land.
But of course, as who was it said? Dale Carnegie said, the customer is always right?
Yeah.
Was it Carnegie who said that?
Or
somebody said the customer is always right. The client is always right. If they want a little more high end than I felt, it's my job to give that to them. But I might turn the job down if it hurts my ears.
What about the C word, compression?
That's, I'm one of the lucky engineers who gets to work on the most pristine audiophile recordings in the world, and lots and lots of other more popular genres and styles, and I adapt to each one. And I'm really happy because every day is a new day. So I use the C word a lot.
Okay.
But when a recording doesn't need it, and it's what I prefer to listen to, I'll have even a better time. Attended a session that Bob Ludwig spoke at today here at the AES convention, and Bob said, the client is the boss. And he said that Metallica for Death Magnetic, that is the master that they wanted. Okay? That's the master that they preferred. Okay? Right. And he'll stick with that language. But Bob knows maybe that he didn't prefer that, but that's how much compression he had to put in to satisfy the client.
Is there ever a time where you say, I'll do whatever you want, but I don't want you to use my name in the credits?
Once every 100.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. What's interesting, and I'm very lucky about this, if you want to talk about mastering engineers, we are in a unique situation. Don't tell anybody, but I'll tell you a little
just our little secret.
Just our little secret. Okay. If someone brings me a recording and it came out really badly, I could say it was the mix, I couldn't do anything with it.
Right.
And if it came out really well, I'll take credit for it even if I didn't do a thing with it. No, I won't take credit for it. The point being that if it was a great mix and I did very little to it, I shouldn't necessarily get the credit for the quality of how it sounds.
Right. Because it's interesting that audiophiles, as you read them or experience them in stereophile, the absolute sound, seem to believe that the mastering is what makes a great recording great.
Oh,
and
no.
If it sounds like crap, they blame the mastering.
Shame on them.
Exactly.
Where do you hear that? I certainly don't believe it to be true.
And you're a mastering engineer.
Well, I mean, I'd like to think that I've contributed a lot to many of the albums that I have mastered.
Right.
But there are a lot of albums that I've mastered where if I didn't have a great mix to begin with, I could never have made a great master. The way I like to describe it to my clients is, if you bring me a B+ mix, I usually can get you an A- to an A master.
Okay.
Okay.
How many jobs come in high res, let's say over 2448? What percentage?
Everyone's different.
Okay.
With my clients, only about 30%.
Oh, that's what I would have guessed.
A lot of people are still sending me, well, I was one of the first who pointed out to the professional world that you've got to send us 24-bit. And now it's very rare that they don't send us 24-bit. Right. But a lot of people are still recording at 44.1 kilohertz.
Not even 48?
Not even 48.
Thanks.
Do you want me to talk about things like peak limiting?
Sure, just explain what it is.
Okay. Peak limiting is kind of a cheat. If you take down some of the...
It's not quite compression.
No, it's a momentary process that might momentarily take down a few peaks and allow you to make it louder. But it slowly deteriorates the sound.
Okay.
And it's become a necessary evil with the loudness wars. But I try to consciously say, well, gee, on this master, I don't think I need to be a dB louder, which the limiter might make it. And I will not peak limit that master.
So in general, I'm here being leading the witness. So would the best sounding of all the masters be the LP master? The least messed with?
The master, yes, but not
LP.
necessarily the LP. Depends on whether what the LP playback process does to the master. It's kind of like the arguments that people make about SACDs sounding better. We know it sounds different, but is it an actual copy of the master if the master was in high-grade, high-resolution PCM? And I firmly believe that the low bit rate PCM, the 1X and the 2X, is a nice, soft, beautiful kind of a sound that many people like, and which suits certain material. So if I mastered an LP maybe a little aggressively, and someone likes something a little bit softer, they're going to prefer the LP to the 2496 master.
I like the way you didn't answer the question, but it sounded really good.
I thought I answered the question. If I didn't answer the question, ask it again, and let's make sure I answer it.
Okay, take two. So Bob, what is the best sounding of, if you're doing it for LP and CD and high res and stuff? What is the best sounding?
Master. What is the best sounding master?
Yeah.
The master that I use to make the LP.
Okay.
Not necessarily the LP. Not necessarily the LP that resulted from it.
That's a drag.
Hey,
so then
if you have
would the high res be closer?
No, wait. Let's start here. If you start with generation 1 and you go to generation 2, in principle, which is the better of the two? One.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So if I start with the 2496 original and then we cut an LP from it, maybe with the intention of using some of the mellifluous aspects that the LP produces from it, then the LP might sound better than my 2496 master. But vice versa, if vice versa is the situation. Did that answer your question?
Better. I might use both.
Well, I
like the way you put it, though, that the master, as opposed to what they actually get to hear. But of course, that depends on their turntable and the phono preamp and the cartridge and everything else.
Well, if they're, I mean, I have a client who I do progressive rock for who has a fantastic turntable. He says it's better than anything that you ever could imagine. Incredible LP playback. And I can't argue with him. I'm not in his room. I don't know. So maybe it brings out aspects from the LP that I've never been able to hear.
Of course.
I'll leave it to the possibility. But the LP can't sound better unless it's adding some kind of interesting, mellifluous distortion.
If that happens.
Because if that happens, it's magic.
Right.
I don't mind
magic,
that.
Right.
I mean, there's also a lot of things
added
that
value.
Pardon?
It's added value.
Yeah, but you know, most LPs, they have to realize today, are made from original digital masters. And I think a good case could be made that that if you were to buy the 2496 or whatever from HD Tracks or QO Buzz or Qobuz, sorry, that you're going to get maybe, arguably, let's just say arguably better sound than you would from the LP that was produced from that
It
file.
would certainly sound more like the master.
Well, it would be the master.
It would be the, well, tell me about your hi-fi. That's what everybody really wants to know.
My hi-fi is in my mastering room.
Okay.
And it is one of the best that anybody has ever heard anywhere on this earth.
That's subtle. So
Yeah.
what's in it?
What's in it?
Start from the speakers, work backwards.
Start from the speakers. Okay. Dynaudio has, the model is called the M5P.
That's a consumer?
It's the professional version of the same model, I forget the number, available in a more wooden, fancy cabinet, but it's the identical to the M5. Okay, so we start from the speakers with the Dynaudio M5P. They are 8 feet tall, and they are a line source with these incredibly curved sides for minimum diffraction, and it's a very small footprint so that you get a great sound stage. It has 4 woofers, 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom, and they're designed to eliminate ceiling and floor reflections. Okay. Then it has 2 mid-ranges, which are the next in line. Again, they are carefully crossed over to eliminate floor and ceiling reflections. Dynaudio calls it their DDC, dynamic directivity control.
Okay.
Okay, and then 2 tweeters in the middle. And you'd think, oh God, 2 tweeters, do they beat against one another? And the answer is no, they don't, because they're on slightly offset crossover frequencies. And what that does, because these are the Ezotart tweeters, which are very smooth, is you get like 3 dB more headroom than you would from a system with a single tweeter, and so it just plays transients effortlessly. Okay, so that's the system. It's 300 pounds. My subs are the JL Fathom F112, and those are aligned perfectly to take over from the Dynaudios using a crossover that I'm running in the digital domain. So then we take over with the woofers and extend that down flat to 17 hertz and minus 3 dB at 15 hertz.
It hurts.
Okay. It doesn't hurt. It feels great.
Okay.
Okay, those are optimally placed. Now, they are driven by a pair of amps that a lot of audiophiles scoff at, and some totally love.
Oh, I know where I'm going to be.
Oh, I think I know where you're going to be. These are the Hypex designed NC500 Class D amplifiers. Lots and lots of power.
Right.
Okay. Now, looking back further, would be a monitor controller. That's like a line stage preamp. Designed by Dave Hill, who's a professional audio engineer, and so it's the Cranesong Avocet. It's a line stage preamp, remote control, 1 dB click step level control, and it's all discrete, Class A, and very sophisticated, minimalist signal path, and quite good with his DACs that he designs inside as well.
Okay.
And so that's the basic system, because we'll play into the DAC from various things, and
that's it. Yeah. So it's strictly 2-channel.
No, it's 5.1.
Ah.
Yeah. The center channel is a Lipinski.
You didn't feel a need to have a Dynaudio in the center.
I couldn't fit one above the video monitor.
Okay.
The 2 surrounds are Lipinskis. Yeah.
No turntable.
Oh yeah, I have a Linsonic LP12.
I
Room is very linear and very, very, very accurate. And I know that you're not a big guy for frequency response.
Right. Accurate's accurate.
But I'm telling you that accurate is schmackerate if it doesn't sound good. And it sounds, very natural, very warm, with good recordings. And it reveals differences between good and poor recordings.
That's what it's there for.
I need it that way.
But do you ever listen just for pleasure on that?
I do. And you know what? I watch a lot of, you're going to freak out, a lot of Blu-rays in that system. It's a really good home theater.
I think we got to stop. I can't take it anymore.
I couldn't give anymore.
My guest today is Bob Katz. Oh, and the name of your company is?
Digital Domain.
My name's Steve Guttenberg. This is the Audiophiliac Daily Show, coming to you from AES in New York City. Thank you guys for watching. See you again real soon. Bye-bye, Bob.
Bye.